morning, students. In previous class, we have seen the world after World War II. What happened after the World War II in the world? The world was divided into how many blocks? It's divided into two blocks. One is American bloc and another one is Russian bloc. The history of China becoming a communist country after the month of Second World War, narrated with the portrayal of development. Thereafter, the Russian Revolution of 1911. So the Chinese Revolution was started. China in the pre-war period, Chinese Revolution was started in the year 1911. Communist Party of China. Then we discussed Comington and Shanghai Sheikh. The Long March. When was started the Long March? 1934. Japanese aggression. Communist victory. Then we discussed National People Congress. After that, we discussed Cold War rivalry between the US and the Soviet Union. US means United States of America. The Soviet Union means Russia. Then we discussed formation of military alliance. How was formed the military alliance? NATO. NATO means the full abbreviation for NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was started in the year 1949. What is the main aim of NATO? The chief objectives or chief aim of NATO was the peace and security in the North Atlantic region. Then we discussed SEATO or Manila Pact, was signed in the year 1954. SEATO means the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, was formed in the year 1954 in Manila. Then we discussed Warsaw Pact, CENTO or Baghdad Pact. Then we discussed Korean War, third world countries. Third world countries means the capitalist countries led by US were politically designated as the first world, while the communist states led by the Soviet Union came to be known as the second world. Then states outside these two were called the third world countries, which means the Soviet Union and United States of America is called as the third world countries. Then we discussed non-aligned movement. What is non-aligned movement? Not to join. So India not to join either of these two countries, Soviet Union and America. Then we discussed the Russian Revolution, Cuban Missile Crisis, Arab-Israeli War, then Suez Canal Crisis also happened in the year 1956. Arab-Israel War, again started the Arab-Israel War in the year 1967. Then Arab-Israel War again in the year 1973. Then we discussed Vietnam War, Council of European. Towards the European Council, European Union was started in the European countries. Why was this started? Means to prevent war in the European countries. Council of Europe, then Europe Coal and Steel Community, then we discussed Europe Economic Community, Single European Act. So this was passed in the year, the Single European came into force 1987. Then we discussed European Union. Then next we discussed fall of Berlin Wall and end of the Cold War era, disintegration of Soviet Union, establishment of European Council to act independent of the influence USA that later developed into European Common Market and into the European Union. In this video, we are going to learn a new lesson, History 5th lesson, Social and Religious Reform Movement in the 19th century. In this lesson, we are going to learn the influence of Western ideas and Christianity in creating a new awakening in 19th century British India. Then social religious sphere, they opposed to the practice of sati, slavery, untouchability and child marriage. Then opposition to idolatry, rituals and superstitions belief. Then in this lesson we are going to learn contribution of Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, Ramakrishna Mission, Theosophical Society, and oligarch movement to the generation of India. Then, what are the role played by the prominent personalities in bringing about this awakening among the Parsis and Sikhs? Then, last, social movement of Jyotiba Phule and reform movement in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. This lesson, first, what is social and religious reform movement? Why this social and religious reform movement was started? In the 19th century, India witnessed a strong wave of reformation activities in religion and society. The Indians were inspired. How they inspired? They inspired by the Western ideas of reason, equality, liberty, and humanity. So they wanted to revive the past glory and started various social and religious reform movement and tried to remove the social evils. These social religious reform movement were called as the Indian Renaissance movement. Renaissance means rebirth. What are social evils? Social evils are the issues that directly or indirectly affect the member of a society and are considered a point of controversy or a problem in regards to moral values. Common social evils include caste system, poverty, dowry system, gender inequality, illiteracy. These are the social evils. The social evils and superstitions that dominated the society over the century made social reforms imperative for development of the society and the masses. So English education introduced with the object of producing clerk also produced a new English educated middle class. This class came under the influence of Western ideas and thought. Christianity also had its effect on the newly emerging middle class. Though small in number, the educational middle class began to take a lead in political as well as in reform movements. The Indian reformers were, however, quite hesitant to subject their old notion and habit to critical security. Instead, they attempt to the harmonious both Indian and Western culture. Their ideas and their action helped to migrate social evils such as sati, female infanticide, and child marriage. Already, you have studied in 8th standard. Uh, William reforms, Lord William Pentrick, how to eradicate the sati, then female infanticide. Okay, you know what is sati, what is female infanticides. So the reform movements of 19th century in the realm of religious fall under two broad categories. Reform movements like Brahmo Samaj, Pratana Samaj and oligarch movement, and the Relativist movement such as Arya Samaj, the Ramakrishna Mission and the Deoband movement. They were also attempt to challenge the oppressive social structures by Jyotiba Phule in Pune. Then Narayana Guru and Ayankali in Kerala and Ramalinga Adigal and Ayodhya Dasar of Tamil Nadu. First early reforms movement in Bengal, Raja Rammohan Roy and Brahmo Samaj. Raja Rammohan Roy, the pioneer of reform movements, he was born in a well-to-do Brahmin family of Bengal. So what does pioneer means? A person who is among the first to explore. First he started the religious reform movement, social and religious reform movement. So he was called as the pioneer of reform movement. He learned so many languages. He learned Arabic, Sanskrit, Persian. Later, he learned English, French, Latin, Greek, and Hebrew languages, and wrote a number of books in Bengali, Hindi, Sanskrit, Persian, and English. Percept of Jesus Christ, then the guide to peace and happiness, were some of them. He got knowledge of various religions of the world. He joined the service of East India Company in the year 1805 and continued the same up to 1815. He went to England to the cause of Mughal Emperor Akbar II for enhanced allowance. He died in 1833 at Bestrol, who was given a title of Raja by the Mughal Emperor. He was called as the Herald of New Age in India. So Raja Ram Mohan Rai was born in 1772 and died in 1833. He was the earlier reformers influenced by the Western ideas to initiate reforms. He was great scholar, well-versed in Sanskrit, Arabic, Persian and English. Apart from his knowledge in his mother tongue, Bengali, Rajaram Mohan Roy was opposed meaningless religious ceremonies and all forms of social customs. Yet he wanted to preserve continuity with the past. In his religious, philosophical, social outlooks, he was deeply influenced by monotheism. You know, mono means one, monotheism, and anti-idol worship. Anti-idol worship based on his interpretation of Upanishads. He argued that all the ancient texts of Hindus preached monotheism or worshipped of one god. So Rajaram Mohan Rai tried to cure Hindu society and religious reform movements, all its evils, and set it on right footing. He founded Atmiya Sabha in the year 1815, which later developed into Brahmo Samaj in 1918. Deeply concerned with the prevailing customs of sati, child marriage and polygamy. Sati, what is sati? Sati means a former practice in India whereby a widow threw herself onto her husband funeral pyre. Then child marriage and polygamy. Polygamy means many marriages. He published tracts against them. So he opposed this sati, child marriage, polygamy and prevailed and petitioned the government to legislate against them. He advocated the right of widows to remarry. He encouraged the widow remarriage. He wanted polygamy to end. He appealed to the reason and humanity and compassion of the people. His campaign played a key role in forcing the Governor General Lord William Pettick legislation abolition of sati in 1829. With the effort of Rajaram Mohan Rai and Lord William Pettick, the sati was abolished in the year 1829. Rajaram Mohan Rai condemned women and opposed the prevailing ideas that women inferior to men. He strongly advocated the education for women. Then he also gave his full support for the introduction of English languages and Western science in the schools and colleges. So when was started the Arya Samaj? Rajaram Mohan Rai started the Arya Samaj in the year 1828. On August 1828, he opened a temple in Calcutta where there was no image. So he opposed the idol worship. There he laid down no religious should be revolted on or slightly or contemporarily spoken of allude to. The Samaj forbade idol worship and condemned meaningless religious rites and ceremonies. However, from the beginning, the appeal of the Brahmo Samaj remained limited to the intellectual and enlightened Bengalis. Though the Samaj failed to attract the people from lower section of the society, its impact on the culture of modern Bengal and its middle class was quite significant. So Brahma Samaj condemned, he was condemned idol worship, costly rites and rituals, caste distinctions, untouchability and the practice of sati. Then he also fought against the polygamy and child marriage, and also he supported intercaste marriage and widow remarriage. He tried to obtain a respectable position for women in Indian society. He encouraged the study of English languages and the Western science in India. After the death of Raja Rammohan Roy, the oak of the Samaj was carried by men like Keshab, Chandra and Debendranath Tagore. Due to his effort of Keshab Chandra an act was passed in 1872. It abolished polygamy and child marriage. Then Maharishi Debendranath Tagore. After the death of Raja Rammohan Roy in the year 1833, Maharishi Debendranath Tagore, he was born in 1817 and died in 1905. A poet Rabindranath Tagore, father, carried on the oak. He laid down 4 articles of faith. And first one is, in the beginning there was nothing. The one supreme being alone exists who created the universe. Then he alone, the God is truth, infinite wisdom, goodness and power, and eternal, the one without second. Then next one, our salvation depends on belief in him and his worship in this world and the next. The last one is, belief consists in loving him and doing his will. Then next, after the death of Debendranath Tagore, his work is carried out Keshab Chandra Sen. Keshab Chandra Sen and Brahma Samaj of India. Debendranath was a moderate reformer, but his younger colleagues in a Sabha were for rapid changes. The greatest of this, Keshab Chandra Sen, he was born in 1838 and died in 1884 and joined this Brahma Samaj in the year 1857. But in 1866, a split occurred in the ranks of Brahma Samaj. Keshabi, he left the Samaj and he was founded a new organization, Debendranath organization. Thereafter came to be known as the Adi Brahma Samaj. After the Keshabi had his 14-year-old daughter married to an Indian prince in contravention of Samaj condemnation of child marriages. The opponent of child marriage left the Brahma Samaj of India and started the Saharan Samaj. Today class we learnt only 2 Rajaram Mohan Raj and Debendranath Tagore and Keshabi Chandra Sen and Brahma Samaj of India. Next class I will discuss Ishwara Chandra Vidyasagar, Pratana Samaj, and Swami Dayananda Saraswati, Arya Samaj, Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Vivekananda, Jyotiba Phule. Please note out the assignment. 2 marks. Mention the 4 articles of faith laid down by Maharishi Debendranath Tagore. Then list the social evils eradicated by Brahma Samaj. Thank you, students.